All right, Zach. Hey, how's it going?
All right, how about you?
All right,
What's
all
up?
right, all right, all right. We're talking about the Star War, um, the second Star War, or
The
fifth
fifth
Star
Star
War,
Wars.
the fifth Star War. Uh,
The Empire
yeah,
comes back for more.
again, the second time. So yeah, we're talking about the Empire Strikes Back. I was forced into the unfortunate situation of not having a reliable means to watch it. So I just bought it on YouTube for
Ooh,
$20, which I didn't
yikes.
like. Yeah, I didn't like that at all. In fact, I because I was like, well, it's the special edition version or the Blu-ray special edition version, which means it's undergone however many changes, and it's a digital version, and it's $20,
Is it on
which is
Disney
which is
Plus
more.
yet?
It is
Okay.
because Disney Plus is out, and I haven't got my Disney Plus subscription yet. It's out as of today, so that gives away when we're recording. Well, whatever.
Yeah,
Anyway,
neither.
um,
I haven't got Disney Plus either. I'll probably just wait until we start doing videos on it. So I probably won't use it until like
not even for
beginning
Star Wars. Oh,
beginning
you have
next
or
year.
you must have the whole collection or something then.
Or yeah, well I borrowed my brother's, so
Okay,
yeah,
and
them all.
Rogue One and Solo are still on Netflix. Um, so yeah. Anyway, yeah. So that was kind of unfortunate. But it was really great watching this movie again.
Yeah.
For those of you, if you kind of missed the first video, I am definitely like the fanboy of the two of us. Like I have the more, I should say, probably the more Star Wars experience out of the two of us, because Zach, you kind of got into it a little later in the game, or you're a Star Wars casual, I guess you
Casual,
could say.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But I love
I'm
The
kind of
Empire Strikes Back.
yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
I'm
Um,
much more passionate about this one than the last one.
okay,
I'll just say
that's
that.
that's very fair. I think the original is spectacular. It does a great job setting things up. I think this movie is that much better, and in fact is probably one of my favorite movies like ever made. Um,
That's fair.
so
Because like I'm not someone who's watched these movies several times over, so going back to this really gives me a fresh
yeah,
perspective each time,
yeah.
and it really made
So
me appreciate it more watching it back.
so this is actually a movie. Give a little background on my experiences with this movie. My dad was a teacher for when I was in like elementary school and throughout high school. And when I was in elementary school, every Wednesday he would have a staff meeting. And I was a little kid. I didn't really have that much homework, so I would do my homework and then I would pop in a video that he would have. He had some educational videos. There were some like BBC or PBS programs that I really like to watch. Some there was like one on cathedrals that I just loved. Um, I like practically memorized that one. But another thing that he had there was a VHS recording of The Empire Strikes Back from when they watched it on CBS, like tons of years ago. Uh, and that forever was the only version of that we owned. Like I don't even think we owned all the VHS copies. We had the original Star Wars, we had Return of the Jedi, and eventually we had the VHS of Episode One. But we didn't, as far as I know, we didn't have the VHS for Empire Strikes Back for some reason. So we just had this taped recording of it. But I must have watched that, oh, easily over 100 times throughout the years. And I didn't. I wasn't able to get through the whole movie every time because there'd be times where it's a 2 hour long movie. It's a cut a little bit because commercial breaks. There was one in particular earlier on where they were a little late to start hitting record again. So you get like half of a line.
Nice, yeah.
It's like the commercial break is like coming back from after Luke's gets attacked by the Wampa, and then it's like he gets in the Bacta container or whatever, that whole scene. But then it shifts from their perspective to like a couple of guys talking about like, oh, we gotta protect the perimeter and you know keep an eye out for that. And it's like half of that, basically like 70% of that like whole exchange is not in our original recording.
Yeah.
So I've seen this movie many times. and it still feels. I don't feel tired of this movie at all. And I don't think I will be tired of this movie. I could probably watch it again tonight and still be just as satisfied as when I watched it last night.
Hmm.
There's so before I gush any more about it. So like, what are some of your thoughts about The Empire Strikes Back? I guess.
Okay, so I like how they did. It's like a bit of a time jump, and then it's like
It's about a year.
it's a much different climate too. So it's not like so now you're like aware that it's not just all deserts. It's not what Star Wars is. It opens up the world a lot more. And you see a lot of different creatures. I like the whole Hoth sequence a lot.
Mm.
I like Leia and Han's relationship's really cool too.
Hmm.
And that's kind of something that it makes sense, even though in the first movie you don't see much of it. It's like there's a brief interactions in the first movie, and then through this time jump, you can assume all this other stuff that like is built up the relationship,
Mm.
and then it feels natural still, 'cause
Yeah.
they did have that little jump, and it. I feel like the dialogue in general was a lot more natural, because I felt like watching the first movie there was a lot of lines and stuff that felt awkward
Hmm.
and weird, and even some acting parts that felt weird, but all of this felt natural in this movie.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that comes down to the script, co-written by the director and Irvin Kershner, and I can't remember the other guy's name. I always, whenever I talk about this movie, I always usually just reference Irvin Kershner, because I think he's spectacular at writing dialogue. Um, but it was co-written with somebody, whose name I just can't remember. But I noticed that with when the credits were going by this time. And yeah, completely agree with you. Some of the dialogue in the first movie is great and as fantastic as it is clunky. They saved, thankfully, most of that in editing. But this movie it's just everything is delivered like in the sense of like a structure or like lines giving you what you need to know. It's done like just spectacularly throughout the whole movie. Yeah, Han and Leia's relationship is it's still it's still like really fun and charming, and because like there's always been there was tension in the first movie between those two characters, and that tension is just like deepened because there's this heavy sexual tension like
Yeah.
every time they're looking at each other, and it's great. Um, and yeah, I think I kudos to them for a great performance
Yeah.
by both of them, by both Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford. I think they brought their all.
And then we also had some really cool new characters introduced here, with Lando
Yeah.
and Yoda
Yeah.
both coming out. I mean, I don't know if there are any other big ones I'm forgetting, but those are the two big ones to me.
Piet is pretty much the only one. He's like the second in command of Vader, essentially. After and what's his name? What's his face gets killed because I really like the theory that's bandied about where when Vader's when they get that probe back and they see the generator, the shield generator, and Vader's like, that's it, that's where they are, and then the guy who was the admiral, whose name I just is slipping my mind, it's like, oh, but there's many uncharted settlements. It could be smugglers, it could be, and then Vader's like, no, this is it, we're going there. His hesitation there, and then his sloppy, we're just gonna blast right in and like have absolutely no subtlety at all in our invasion of this planet. I like the fan theory that he was actually kind of a sympathizer, or he began to kind of like, especially with like some of the looks he gives the other officers and stuff, and just like it just seems, I don't know. I like that interpretation anyway. And he is quickly brought to his death.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, you can't admit fault to anything in front of Darth Vader because you just die.
yeah.
It's like, yeah, sorry about that, boss. Okay, I accept your apology.
Yeah,
You're dead.
yeah. It's always one of my favorite things where it's like Quick, scan for them. They may come around for another pass. Sir, they're not on our scopes. What? No ship that small has a cloaking device. And it's just like, sir, Lord Vader wants an update on the pursuit. It's just like immediately, it's just like, oh crap. It's like, I'm gonna die.
But he does say,
Yeah.
they just accept
He does.
it.
He just accepts his failure. Yeah. So Vader is just such a great villain. Like he is the main villain of this movie in particular.
Yeah.
The Grand Moff Tarkin was really the villain of the first one. Played very brilliantly by Peter Cushing. We didn't really talk about that much, but he is just so resolute. He has one goal, and he does whatever it takes to meet that goal, and it's fantastic and chilling. And I mean, there's a reason he's just such an iconic character. It's probably the suit, but every scene with the Empire is always sometimes can be just as compelling as the stuff with our heroes. So
I just really enjoy the whole Yoda Dagobah sequence too, and I feel like there's a couple of things in this movie where like some of the practical stuff doesn't work very well. Like in the beginning in particular, it doesn't look great, especially now. But Yoda's part is like the best to me.
Yoda is like one of the best like puppets ever made.
Yeah.
Like he's there and you believe that he's there.
And it's funny, you see the little guy rummaging through the bag or whatever it was.
Yeah, I love that. It gets the light. You just like love that little light. I've always laughed at that. That's always great. Yeah, well, I even said when I was watching the movie with my parents last night, I was like, I'm so glad that George Lucas had incredibly talented. He was close with incredibly talented people like Jim Henson and Frank Oz, because without them, I mean, that performance, that is incredible. Like, it's just incredible. And I mean, that really makes that part of the movie. Just he's a puppet, but he doesn't feel like one during the movie. He's a character. He's there, and they do just a spectacular job. Frank Oz, props to him for just doing an amazing job with that performance.
And there's a lot of iconic moments in this movie in general. They're like some of the most remembered Star Wars moments, like the whole Darth Vader, no, I'm your father thing.
Yeah, your father, yeah.
Which was always like, Luke, I remember people would like exaggerate that so much, like reciting it.
Yeah.
Be like, Luke, I am your father. But then when you watch the movie, it's like, no, I'm your father. It's not really that.
It's one of the most misquoted movie lines ever. It really is, yeah. Yeah, no, I am your... Yeah. And it's...
No, the actual line is, no, you're my son. You're my son, Luke.
No, you're my boy. It reminds me of... This is a complete tangent, but it reminds me of when Napoleon Dynamite first came out, when people would just horribly misquote that movie. At least in my friend circle, people would just like horribly misquote that movie. And I'd only seen it once, and I was like, that's not what that line is. Stop. You're embarrassing me. But yeah. Yeah, one of the most misquoted lines in movie history, but it's an iconic moment. Some other one of my favorite lines, one of my favorite exchanges is between Luke and like I still get like chills every time I hear this line. It is between Luke and Yoda in his hut, and Luke goes, "I'm ready. I'm not afraid." And he goes, "Yeah, you will be." You will be. And it's just like, it's so like, you hadn't seen that character be that serious yet, and the fact that he does, and the music accompanying it is just like so like, John Williams kicks it out of the park again. I mean, this is my favorite Star Wars score as well. That Hoth sequence is 11 minutes of just like spectacular action music. Like, he just an amazing job. The Hoth sequence in general is like one of my favorite action scenes. Um,
Yeah.
in movies. It's so good. I mean, I just love. I don't know. It's interesting having the movie kick off with our heroes being completely outnumbered and on the run like that. I mean, you felt like, oh, at the end we got an upper hand. It's actually one thing that I really liked that the extended universe sort of delved into with some of the video games is that you some of them had you do the escape from Yavin because basically after the Death Star is destroyed, imagine what the Empire's reaction to that would be. Okay, so send in like the entire fleet to just to basically glass the planet before they can get away. Is basically what it is. So they had to like evacuate. So it's basically after that ceremony, they're like, "All right, now you guys get your medals. Let's get out of here."
Yeah.
Because, and yeah, and then obviously ended up on a ice planet. So.
And I really
Yeah.
like just in general as a storyline. I think it works really well too. Even just as a movie isolated by itself. Like
Yeah.
the fact you split up the group a little bit. You know, you have
Mhm.
Luke off doing his own thing with Yoda, and then ultimately there's payoff because he comes back to actually come in when he's needed, and then
Yeah.
Princess Leia comes back when he needs her. So they all kind of like, and it's cool coming into this movie how they managed to make the group feel like a family, even after
Yeah.
this only one movie really, and it's like. From what we saw in the first movie, there's not really that much there. It's just like,
Yeah.
they're buddies, but I could see them just parting ways after that, and they managed to make it really cool, believable relationships going on there.
Yeah. I think. Well, I think some of the like the shots, the back and forth between Luke and Han in Hoth when they're essentially saying their goodbyes to each other is like that to me solidifies exactly what you're talking about there. Where it's like in the first movie, you know, were a little quippy, they were a little more on edge with each other. But in this one, it's like there's a real warm connection between them, even though they've got the love rivalry, so to say. It's like there's a genuine friendship there, and you can tell that Han really cares and worries about what's going to happen with the Hoth situation. So yeah.
Even the interactions with like the more side characters like Chewbacca and C-3PO are great too. Like never tell me the odds is a great line too.
Yeah, never tell me the odds. I'm trying to think of some other ones. Do or do not. There is no try.
Yeah.
It's a great line. Don't make me destroy you. It's a line before Luke, I am your father.
Luke,
it's a line.
I've always
Luke,
been
you are my
your
boy.
father.
Luke, you are my boy. My baby boy.
The classic Star Wars line.
Yeah,
Luke,
I mean this.
I'd like to adopt you.
So to touch on the like the alternations to this film, a lot less distracting than in the first one. Though that's been done through the years. I don't know if you know this, but in the '97 special edition, you know when Luke defiantly falls off of the down the shaft there.
No!
Do you know? Yes, yes.
I remember
that was added in.
Yeah,
Because it's like stuff like that is just like why? The whole point of that act is complete and utter defiance, and it's like you don't understand what's going on in your own. Well, it's not his movie, I guess. Technically, he was the story concept, and he's the producer, George Lucas, but he didn't direct that movie, and he didn't write the movie either. So it's like him going in and adding a no when he's falling down. It's just like, oh, it's so embarrassing.
My baby boy. That classic Star Wars line.
And then someone must have told him, like, George, you realize, like, that completely undercuts that moment, right?
And Han Solo and Carbonite. That was another iconic Star Wars moment too.
Oh, well, yeah, I love you. I know.
Oh, no.
It's just so great. I remember my mom was just like, she just got, because she always laughs at that. And I was just like, but, like, that line, because originally I think in the script the line was essentially I love you too, but he improvised saying I know, and I was like, that line is so much better
Well, remember that?
It's
Yeah,
so much
remember that
more
classic
memorable.
Star Wars line where Han Solo says, "I love
I
you
love
as
you.
well."
I love you too.
I love you
Yeah,
as well,
I love
Leia.
you as well. Leia, my love, my OTL. Um, yeah, it's just yeah, it's
No.
because like that's such his character.
I know. Yeah.
It's just great. So
But
yeah,
that could be the last. That could be the last words they say to each other. And he's just like, I know.
yeah, but it's confident, it's sexy, and he's defiant even in death.
All
So
right.
is Han Solo is also defiant in death, which is great. But yeah, so back again, special edition changes, different changes. So they added a lot more windows in Cloud City,
Okay.
and some of them were fine. There was one that was unbelievably distracting because of how not right it was, and it was one where they were like running outside. There was like an area where they were like running through like a corridor, like a small corridor that was sort of outside, and it just didn't look right because
Mm.
that wasn't filmed. That wasn't filmed at an interior set. Or, I mean, I should say that was filmed at an interior set, and it's like they sort of forced them to look like they're running outside. It looked very wrong. Some of the other windows and stuff looked pretty bad too. I found that distracting just because I'm so used to the movie looking a specific way. I think overall it's less intrusive and less offensive. So it's they're not terrible, but I do wish they weren't there.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing that I also wish wasn't there, because you're completely erasing an actor's existence from history, and that's all of Boba Fett's lines were redubbed
Oh, okay.
to match his voice, the guy who plays him in Attack of the Clones,
Oh,
and
yeah.
all subsequent Star Wars media. Which is kind of silly because it's like, well, why don't you do all the stormtroopers then? Well, here's the thing: stormtroopers weren't all clones at this point either. So could be worse. It could be what we're going to watch next, which does a lot of changes that
Oh,
I
yeah, that's
don't
true.
like. Yeah, you know one of them. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely eliminating more hardworking puppeteers.
Yeah.
Just so horrible. Yeah. I mean, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, it's
Are
unless you
there
have anything else,
are
really.
there any
Uh,
things you don't like in this movie in
I
particular?
Not really. I mean, other than just that, maybe I'm too familiar with it. I wish I could be more
Yeah.
fresh with the movie. But like as I even said at the beginning, I don't tire watching this movie. It's something. It's a movie that I'll be able to go back to time and time again. Even yeah, honestly, like I said, my complaints aside about the special edition changes, this was far more watchable to me than some of the other edits, the other Blu-ray edits, I would say. So that's a plus. I guess if I had to think of one thing, it would be 3PO can be a little overbearing in this movie.
Okay.
He does have a lot of lines where he's complaining.
Mm.
That's his character though, so like I'm fine with it, and I find most of it very funny. So because it's just like he's just a protocol droid, and he's getting thrown into all these horrible situations. I'd be complaining too.
Hmm.
Um,
I want to ask you
yeah.
about the sequence at the end. I wasn't a huge fan of the when Luke falls down and he's dangling underneath the
Mhm.
ship. I'm not a huge fan of like how that's shot because there's a lot of like cuts, and it's kind of I find it awkward at a lot of times because it's like you aren't following the action a lot of the times. It'll be like cut and then he's like down with Leia, and like we miss the whole like transition down. He falls, cut, and there's some.
No, you see Lando come down with him, and then you see him bring him in, and then you see Leia sort of take over and then put him down. I mean, you don't see him put him down on the bed, but I kind of get what you're saying.
I found like that sequence, and then in the beginning with Tampa,
The Wampa.
or the Wampa. I mean, yeah, that I'm not a huge fan of that sequence, especially how it's shot, where it's like, cha, arm falls off, and
That wasn't in the original cut. They actually showed more of the Wampa in the special edition. You saw very little. I don't even know if you really saw the full creature in the original cut. If memory serves,
okay.
is him slice the arm, and then you see like the arm fall down, and then he dashes out. I kind of agree with you. I didn't really like him cutting the arm off and then it like falling down and showing the Wampa go like oh, and then showing him run out. It was just it felt a little like too. It didn't feel like urgent enough, I guess.
Yeah,
The way
like over the top, like
yeah,
no.
yeah, he was like my arm. Yeah.
I remember that classic line.
Yeah, the way. Yeah, I think the reason that I like the way it's originally cut almost feels more like a Jaws kind of anticipation in the cave because you don't see much of the creature. You just see like little bits and pieces. And he's menacingly coming closer. You don't see him feeding on the tauntaun,
Okay.
which you do in this. You see him like, which I guess is like grotesque in its own way. I think some of that like was filmed, but it was only added in the special editions, and it was the original cut didn't have a lot of that stuff. It was a lot more tight and tense, I would say. But
Right. Well, maybe I'm nitpicky. I also just don't like how the Wampa looks in general too. You know.
I mean that's fair.
It's just
He's
I feel like
he's just a big snow monster, basically.
yeah. In terms of like practical and like puppetry, it's gonna generally not look as good when it's like a fluffy creature. Because it's gonna like look super like it's like he's like made of cotton kind of. It doesn't.
Well, that's why
it's not as believable as a lot of the other aliens and Yoda.
Well, I think that's again why it benefits from not seeing the whole thing. Like that's kind of the
I've seen too much.
To use like the example of aliens. The alien itself is very weird and strange and like that doesn't look very practical, like how it will be able to move around or anything. It's like very oblong and like yeah, but it's because like it almost looks silly if you see the whole thing, but like because you only see bits and pieces of it, it makes it far more terrifying and far more effective as a space horror movie, at least the first Alien. So because you don't see the whole thing, it makes it works better as like a model or as a creature design. Because you don't see the whole thing. I think sometimes that can be a fault, particularly in this time period when they were so proud of their design that they said, we got to show the whole thing. And it's like, well, sometimes it works better and less fake if you don't show the whole thing. Yeah, okay. I kind of agree with you on that, yeah.
Well, I was going to knock it down 6 points for that, but I'll reconsider.
I was going to knock it down like, 6-letter grades, but... Yeah, I don't think there's really much else to say. Oh, one thing we haven't mentioned, but one thing I really love about these movies, wipe cuts. The editing.
A lot of wipes.
Wipes are like.
But it's a lot of wipes.
They're not that many.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
That was like their go-to.
I like wipes.
A lot of movies at the time, though, used like they felt like they needed this transition, like every scene change, you know. So if you look back decades ago, there's a lot more noticeable transitions because it's like wipe, cross, dissolve, you know, and it'll be like circle comes out into another shot. They'll do those kind of in-your-face editing things.
They don't usually do that. The in Star Wars usually they fade from the outer edges in with the circle.
Yeah,
it's not. I think the end credits does it that way. And I think most of the other ones do it that way too. I don't remember. The end credits actually might go the opposite way. I have to figure that out. One of my favorite wipe cuts, it still is the one where they're picking Han up to put him on the table, and it wipes up like essentially as they're lifting him out. I don't know. I've always really liked that edit a lot. And there's other ones that work, I would say, as well, but. It's probably more frequent than I'm thinking, but I just really like the wipes. I don't know. That's something that I've always really liked.
I'm not a huge fan of wipes. Okay. I'm not a huge fan of editing in general that's like really noticeable. I'm more of a fan of like editing that's not in your face, like because you're gonna notice every time there's a wipe transition, and it's like, oh, this is a movie, yeah.
Yeah.
But there was also a really cool shot of Darth Vader where it was like you could see space and everything. And then it like transitions into him looking outside of the window.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's kind of like seamless and makes it look like his head's out in space at first, and then it comes in. It's like, oh, it's cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a cool shot. Yeah, everything that bridge, I love that bridge set design.
Yeah.
Where like all the workers are down in the trench down below, and he can just
Look down on them, yeah.
he can essentially look down on them. He can take views out of all of the viewing windows in the front and on each side. It's such a great bridge design. I really love that set.
Yeah.
I don't think there's too much else to. I mean, we could keep talking about this, like things we like about this movie for forever. So, I will just give it up to the funniest alarm ever in a movie. It makes me laugh every single time. When Han is making repairs on the Falcon, and that it's the turn it off, and there's a plume of smoke, and there's a in the background. Makes me laugh every time I hear it. So
Yeah. And Luke is better in this movie. He's not as well. He whines, but
it's an understandable frustration, I would say.
he's like, when are we gonna get to Yoda? Gosh.
Yeah, it's just like, who is this? Why is this rant? Yeah, I mean, he's already frustrated because the crash landed and there's no way out, and
then Yoda says the classic line, "Patience you will have."
So what are you gonna grade this movie?
I'm gonna give it. Ooh, that's tough. No, what are you gonna give it?
Am I gonna? I'll go first. Okay. All right. Well, this is my 10 out of 10 movie.
10 out of 10.
Yep.
The perfect movie.
This is one of my favorite movies ever. It does everything for me. Has very few and if any noticeable faults for me. Anyway, I'm sure some people, because it's boring or something. I don't know. Yeah, I adore this movie. I think it's incredibly well conceived. I think it works on a technical level, a thematic level, and just as a storytelling example of this is how you do a good second act of a story. Like this is like the quintessential second act.
Yeah.
So
actually improving on the first.
Yep.
Which is hard to come by.
Yeah.
I'll give it a 9.5 out of 10.
Okay. All right. Fair. That's high. That is high praise for you. That's pretty high for you. Yeah. So.
And that makes it probably the highest, definitely the highest we've ever scored anything. So.
Yeah.
9.75 out of 10.
So finishing thoughts. There's one thing that I really liked that I was pointed out to. It was years ago now, but that I really like about Darth Vader in this movie is that you see him, and we mentioned it before, killing whoever makes mistakes in his way.
Mm-hmm.
But we see at the end of the movie when the biggest thing happens, the person he's trying to convince to come alongside him, his entire goal of the movie, gets away again, and he doesn't kill anyone. And I like that a lot.
Should have killed himself.
Yeah, yeah, Darth Vader.
Remember that that classic Star Wars moment.
That classic Star Wars moment where
Vader kills himself after Luke falls down.
It just like cuts to like a chair falling over and just
no.
It's just like
yeah. So overall, wasn't a huge fan of the movie.
Overall, this movie sucked.
It's great.
Yeah.
So like I said before, I've never been like hugely into Star Wars, hugely passionate or opinionated about Star Wars, but this movie, watching it back again, it made me passionate, and now I'm the biggest Star Wars fan ever.
Yeah. So, yeah. There you go.
There you go.
Also, the movie poster for this one is
Yeah.
probably my favorite. Maybe my favorite. I really like Return of the Jedi's a lot too, but
I like the Lego Ninjago movie.
Oh yeah, Lego Ninjago movie is a good box art. Yeah. All right, so we will see you next time for Revenge of the Jedi.
When the Jedi comes back.
Revenge
Jedi
of the
Strikes
Jedi.
Back.
Oh, it's called Return of the Jedi. We'll see that one.
Right.